Welcome, my name is Kate Apted, and today I want to discuss with you why I think mothers would make fantastic mechanics in the heavy industry in particular, but also the light vehicle industry. Let's get started. Now, truck techs are in very short supply across Australia. The heavy vehicle industry is no exception to any of this. Now, the problem is attracting staff and also keeping them in the industry. Now, if you think about the industry in general, it's actually male dominated, and very few of those techs that are in the industry are female. So if the industry has a shortfall, where can that shortfall be made up? Now, I'm going to argue that mothers, not just females, but mothers in particular, are where I think the industry should be looking for their next load of technicians. They should be attracting apprentices and keeping them. Now, I've got 3 reasons why I think that's the case. And underneath each of those reasons, I'm going to expand upon those reasons and state and support those arguments. First, I think they make valuable employees. Second, they're natural problem solvers. And 3, they have transferable attributes and skills. Now, the industry is very blinded to the fact that they try to have males in the industry, because the natural thinking is that the best mechanics are the guys who have worked on their dad's cars, or they've been in the industry for a long time since they were young. And they're the sort of people they try and attract and keep in the industry. And I think that's very short-sighted. So why wouldn't mothers be naturally considered as new talent? And I've got 3 sort of very vague reasons that I think that it could be a problem. Firstly, women don't consider the trade. So it naturally falls upon them to want to come to the industry to even be considered by employers. And I think that thinking that way puts the onus on the females when I think it really should be coming from the industry itself. And they seem to think that females clearly don't want to do the trade. I think that it's more that they haven't thought about doing it, and if it was said to them in such a way that it made an attractive option, I think there'd be more females, and mothers in particular, that would actually be considerate. Now that leads on to my second point, in that it requires heavy lifting and skills that blokes naturally have. And I think that females and mothers in particular need to understand that the industry is not a brutish one where they have to show brute force and physical ability and so forth. There's ways around doing the job that I think mothers would stand in good stead, but we'll come to those points in a moment. My third point regarding about females coming into the industry is that mothers have too many family commitments. Now, there is thinking that mothers are going to naturally go home to their children if they're ill, that there's no one else to look after the children, that the industry is very blokey in that sense and may not sort of fit with family ethos and so forth. I don't think that's the case. And let's get into my reasons why I think mothers would make great technicians. Now, my first point is that mothers make valuable employees. And what's my thinking behind that? They're likely to want to work closer to home or be nearer to family. And that's great for small businesses that are finding it really difficult to get guys or anybody, because the industry does attract people from their region, or they get concentrated in certain areas such as the mining industry in WA. In Melbourne, the heavy vehicle industry is largely centred over at Laverton. So small businesses on the eastern side of the city can't really attract that many staff. And the attraction for being on the other side of town or in the mining industry is money. But if you've got mothers who are keen to work close to home, that solves a lot of problems. They get settled because they've had their party days behind them. They've settled down, they've had their children, and their ethos and their values are different. So I think that would actually be a plus for employers. They're used to multitasking and having competing demands. So families may be demanding dinner, children might be demanding to have their nappies cleaned. Things can be going on throughout the day. Mothers are used to this. It's normalised for them to have to have competing demands, which is what goes on in the industry. Next point, safety comes first. So mothers are always having to think about the welfare of their children and their families, and themselves, of course. And I think that it starts to develop in them in a way that doesn't need to be instilled from a workplace perspective, and I think that could really help employers. And they generally have prior work experience and an established work ethic. Because they've already been in the industry, they've also got families, they've had to develop a work ethic to be successful in their daily endeavours. My next point is that they have developed problem-solving skills. So technicians require problem-solving skills to diagnose, fix mistakes, find ways to make things work, and develop new strategies to get something done. Now let's see how mothers deal with this on a daily basis. Child raising. Each day is different, confronting new challenges. They've got to get on with the job. They've got to find ways to deal with everything that arises. So you're going to develop problem-solving skills. They always have contingency plans. If a child's sick one day, what do? They've got to think on their feet and find alternate ways of doing things. They carry on even though tired. Problem-solving skills need to be there when you're tired as well. They see through projects. The kids are for life. You can't just avoid children because they're annoying or you want to palm them off to somebody. So mothers will see through projects. A child is a lifelong one. Lack of time leads to prioritising outcomes. So mothers may not have a lot of time to get something done. They might have to run errands, go to the doctor, take their children to school. They get it all achieved. And group focused. They naturally work in groups. They've got families. They have to consider other people. So as far as I'm concerned, mothers have got these skills. And third point, their skills are trade ready. So what does that mean? It means they're self-reliant. They can work as a team for an outcome, but they've also developed self-reliance. They may not have someone to help them in the course of a day. They've got to think things through on their own. They can get into a job irrespective of their feelings. So if they're tired or they're sick, they've still got to be mothers. They still have to carry on and see the family through. They're used to the daily grind of working. So they've got house chores, dealing with daily demands, and maybe they have to work part-time or full-time anyway. So they're already doing a full workload. They're used to the hard work. And that's something that will land them in good stead with employers in the heavy vehicle industry. Understanding the necessity of caring for tools. Tools are expensive. They need to be looked after. You need that tool when a job has to go. So mothers have already had to handle household budgets, teach children sharing and caring principles. They do it naturally. It's developed in them. And lastly, they have to realise that the customer is paying substantial money for servicing and repairs. Now, mothers have to budget. They won't always necessarily have huge amounts of money to play with, so they'll understand that a person paying for something is expecting good service, and they're likely to give it. I'm not saying that young ones can't or young males won't, but this is already something that's instilled upon them. So while mothers may need to pick up the skills that are involved in actually mechanicking per se and working on vehicles, they've got many attributes that make them fantastic employees. Now, all this came about because of a wonderful woman called Stephanie Disher, who was in 2017 the managing director of Cummins South Pacific, a huge company in this industry. Now, she wanted to know 50-50, if not, why not? And it was her drive to know why more females weren't entering and staying in the heavy vehicle industry. She noted that females need to recognise the industry as a viable one and one they can indeed enter, but it's also up to businesses to attract these staff and keep them. And I was also through a discussion with Conan and Brad, the owners of Velocity from America, a huge company who also own a substantial share of Daimler businesses in Australia. They wanted to know who they could be attracting as new staff. So I spoke with them about Steph's idea and said, why are we not attracting mothers? I'm proof that it can be done successfully and to help a business. So 50-50, if not, why not? Thank you.